is Merman. But this is Merman. Something fishy seems to be going on. Let's find out what. This is PopCon. I'm Victor, and you're back in the 80s. So many action figure promises in the 1980s. What was on the box to what we got, but we liked it. Now, today's story is somewhat unique and calls for a different kind of explanation. So let's figure out this ridiculous fish story together. At the dawn of the greatest era, a plan was being devised. The concept of a brunette barbarian leaving his family behind in the vine jungle and into the battlefields of Eternia. This hero and the concepts would change so much that various characters developed for this famous toy line went back and forth between good and evil factions, even after their release. During the development, as every good toy line had, something aquatic, something seafaring was needed, and Merman was born, or spawned. This is some of that concept art for the character. Note the ornate armor, those dingleberries hanging from his belt, and those fabulous boots and gloves. His head with the sea urchin motif set the tone. This was something that could live in the cold Marianas Trench. Now, toys and action figures had come a long way at the turn of the 1980s, but it would be longer still for action figure molds and design technology to recreate such a detailed look into 100% injected molded plastic at the time. Still, he was foreboding. No, not for going out on a boat, but he was a formidable looking character. You'd think we'd at least get something close. Marketing began, and marketing artwork would be required for cross-sell on the figure's card back they were sold on. This was important for a burgeoning new line that needed all the help it could get, as the toyscape and advertising laws were changing. As so often is the case, marketing goes faster than producing, and sometimes production and advertising, well, they don't communicate. Here is that cross-sell art found on the initial packaging. It looks like the concept art very closely. As a matter of fact, this was the model for all the artist renderings for this character, including the pack-in mini comics that had to be completed before the figures were produced and packaged. Here he is in a red outline on the back of the Castle Grayskull playset. The artwork was meant to mimic the toy you would get. It was a pretty good facsimile of a picture of the would-be action figure. Taking a quick glance at He-Man and Skeletor, and you'd think that was the Merman you intended to buy off the shelves, as those two look like the outlines of the actual toys. Now, I got He-Man and Skeletor right out of the gate, and their mini comics showed us this, and this, and this. As we see, everyone thought this was going to be Merman. He was an exceptional addition to the Rogues Gallery for sure, and heightened my anticipation for more action figures. And then the character appeared in blister card on the toy shelf peg. He was part of the first wave, and after seeing him in the comics and his cross-sell illustration, why then did the toy in hand look like this? This cat-headed slug instead of the regal ocean warrior I was promised? What happened? Well, lost in translation probably isn't the answer, as much as all those details were just difficult to mold into the original figure back in the day. I mean, it hadn't been long since the highlight of toys were this. They just didn't have the technology to get all of those details. All of them had some great detail in the mini comics, and most of the cross-sells were fairly accurate. There were some strange anomalies with some of those cross-sells, especially those included on the original mini comics, which depicted the character action figures in more of a concept state than a drawing or a photo-realistic action figure look. We were not getting Beastman with so much hair. We were promised this, but we got the Weight Watchers version. But Merman simply wasn't the size or hair. It was like his understudy stepped in to replace the original actor cast in the role. A last-minute cancellation. In tonight's performance, and all other performances, the role of Merman will be portrayed by the skunk ape. Actually, 5 of the original characters had been displayed in promotional material as mock-ups. They were called the Lords of Power then. And you see that the Merman there was definitely the one they wanted us to have. This is where you see the giant Beastman too, which confirms the cross-sell definitely chose to favor this original representation. But these were not the real action figures, they were only man-made prototypes. What this toy line needed for consistency and to realize the visualization of the original concept was a cartoon. And that is exactly what we got in 1983. Government legislation had only just loosened their grip, and marketing toys to kids through animated cartoons, and including cartoons for said toy line during the cartoon.
This is madness.
Blurring the line from cartoon to commercial became as easy as pouring a bowl of Cookie Crisp and plopping in front of the TV on Saturday morning. But this was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and they were an after-school cartoon. When it debuted, Merman was there, and the chance to showcase that stunning imagery of the concept character in the way he was intended was completely blown. This is the Merman from the cartoon. It is well known that Filmation needed every character to be symmetrical for animation reasons, and except for like Trapjaw, this was mostly true. But as simplified as he was, there was little in his head design to represent either the original concept as promised or even the actual product that was released. So now we have what we were promised, what we got on the toy shelves, and in their chance to improve, we got this saltwater gurgling oath.
We've all heard that before.
Will the real ocean warlord please stand up? To gut Merman while he was down, another action figure came out who was an exact repaint of his figure with only different armor. The Masters of the Universe favorite, Stinkor, was released smelling of real patchouli oil, which by the way isn't a bad smell. But when you match it with a skunk-colored action figure, I guess it turns people off. And they probably made this at the same time as Madonna's Like a Prayer album. That was released smelling the same way. It was an 80s thing. Although Stinkor was not in the cartoon, he was a much-loved action figure, and that head seemed to work in that sort of skunk ape type thing. To add insult to injury, later he would be immortalized in the 2000X Mike Young cartoon series with a brand new head mold, or design. But in an effort to rectify this gross oversight, Merman was released in that line more reminiscent of his original intent. As a matter of fact, hyper-realized with details that took his concept way over the top. And here, Merman was an actual action figure, while Stinkor was a staction figure. Yeah, staction, like static, doesn't move, just toy terms. At this point, no one was using the hideous crushed cat face at all. What was the deal? Then Masters of the Universe Classics debuted, and in true fashion of this adult collector-only toy line, both characters were released with both sets of their heads. So now collectors had choices. Merman with the original and the concept intended head, and Stinkor with both his original Merman copied head and his 2000X original design. This was all becoming too incredible, but also too expensive, as they were not in retail, but they were only online action figures for collectors. Sheesh. Okay, when Masters of the Universe Origins released in 2020, this new retail promised modern posing with retro play. When it comes to our fishy fiend, we get... Well, I had to get him anyway, even if they had copped out and gave us the original 1982 release of the head. I get that was what the toy line was going for, but hell, Man-at-Arms even had his Filmation mustache. Then, of course, Wave 5 of these series comes out in mid-2021, complete with an updated Merman, forcing us to buy another one.
It's a trap!
I had to have it too. It was the original design for the action figure. Not too much detail, but enough to be perfect for the collection that I always dreamed of. And he was the Merman I always intended to have, but never got. He was mine. Finally mine. Hey everybody in Popcorn Land, this is your host Victor saying please subscribe to my channel. Lots more to come and a lot of changes, but if you enjoy this, please subscribe. Now at some point I would have to get to the unboxing of this action figure. You see, I got this one second. It is Wave 5 in the Masters of the Universe Origins collection, and of course when the first Merman came out, I grabbed it up. When I saw that this became available, I had always wanted the Merman promised to me in all of that artwork. So he looks fantastic, and of course he is based off of what was called the Lords of Power, kind of prior to the Masters of the Universe, the original sculpt, the design that everybody thought was going to happen before we got what we got. So the package of Masters of the Universe Origins, the same, new for 21, retro play. The Lords of Power logo is actually a sticker on the blister card, which is unique and very cool, calling it out that it is a different design or comes from a different background or story, the story we've been talking about. Now on the back, when they released this one, they actually included different artwork. What I love about the different artwork that I'm going to put right here is that there is a creature in the picture that is reminiscent of one of the original mini comics. So they really took that artwork from there and put on it. As well as Tila, she and her horse are also reminiscent of the original mini comic artwork of that character. So it was neat when we got the other Merman to actually get a new piece of artwork. So this is a great looking action figure, and so I'm opening it up, folks. This is exciting. Just gonna peel like I do, right? Uh-oh, there we go. And it's not hard, but I'm being more dramatic. I'm gonna have to peel this paper. All right. Inside is the comic Sucker Punch. Now, when we open Fisto, it's the same comic because the waves come with the same comic. So everyone in that certain wave there. Here he is in his blister pack with the Lord of Power logo on it. You can slide him out this way. Inside he does have, again, just the single rubber tie or the plastic elastic tie there. So we are going to quickly cut that out so that we can pop out Mr. Merman here. All right, so the Lords of Power version of Merman. We'll be showing him in the white box with his counterpart. You know, I love it. A lot of people are like, what's so different? I mean, I can tell it's the same guy. Of course you can. But there is a difference. There is a story. And I love a good story. So let's take a look up close at Merman and his doppelganger. This first version of Merman from Origins, he mirrors his 1982 figure, but with plenty of articulation. The 80s line would start to represent Merman in this look on other box art. It has similarity to the concept art, but not enough that there was the second version in Wave 5 to come out. You can see the cheap use of the same mold for Stinkor, and they could have avoided that with the Lords of Power version. This new version from Wave 5 is beautiful and looks a lot more like the concept art. Now, the Lords of Power gift set that came out recently with Beastman, He-Man, Skeletor, and Man-at-Arms does have a lot more deco on it, but this version is exactly the one I want, the one I need. Now, I've got them both together here. You can see there are some similarities, but I love that I finally got the Merman of my dreams. Now what do I do with the other? Well, with that all done, got to get rid of this packaging. I say it a lot, of course, but I don't like mint and box. I'm the kind that just needs to open their action figure, needs to pose it. As a matter of fact, sometimes I actually grab them and pose them differently, take a look at them. So with this, though, it's just trash. We can always find this beautiful artwork online, so see ya. That did a lot more damage than I expected. Well, here's a look at the PopCon toy shelf and the collection, including Merman. Want to remind everybody, if you haven't liked and commented, please subscribe as soon as you can. And remember that Collection 82, our sister site and business, has some great MOTU-inspired artwork, including Merman and other pop culture. I'll leave a link in the description. I love adding a new action figure to my toy shelf behind me, don't you? And even if you're not a fan of Merman the character, or even He-Man, it's a lot of fun to look at the concept, the background, and the finished product. There's so much history to these playthings that have become such an important part of my life. Which Merman was your favorite? Was it the classic rendition they hoped to make? Was it the original that came out? What about the one in the Filmation cartoon? Tell me in the comments which is your favorite Merman, and we'll hit another character very soon. Thanks for joining me. Until next time.